50. Tonight we have a special guest. I've really been looking forward to this, Alissa Knight. Before we get started, we'll go over a couple housekeeping things and some news. So housekeeping, I've turned off the chat except for me and Alissa. If you have a question, put it in the chat box. I'll get to it when I get to it. Also, today is 9/11, which is the day that kicked off my career in cybersecurity and intelligence, and also put me on a path to hacktivism post 9/11. So it's a very special day. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and introduce our guest, Alissa Knight. Hi, Alissa. How are you tonight?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me on here. It's great to be here.
It's awesome. Awesome to have you. I don't even know where to start with your background and with your story. Like, I've done so much digging and chased down rabbit holes and you've done so much. So why don't you give us a brief background of who you are, kind of a little bit of what you've done, and we'll jump right in.
Yeah, sure. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a recovering hacker of 20 years. I originally actually got started in the BBS scene, which is how I got involved in all of this craziness. Built my first computers, a 486 SX25, started a multi-node BBS in Seattle. That's when I pretty much got introduced to IRC and Pound Hack. And so this was at a very different time. But I started playing with exploits that I was finding on IRC and getting from new friends, and ended up hacking a government network when I was 17, was arrested and caught, and the charges were dropped, and I went to go work for the US intelligence community in cyber warfare shortly after. I've started and sold multiple cybersecurity startups. I'm a published author. I've published the first book on hacking connected cars. I'm in the process of writing a new book on hacking APIs. And I also, among the different family of companies that my wife and I run, we have Night Entertainment. I'm currently working on a new TV script for a new TV series that's going to be based on my life. So that's going to be interesting. And then, now I'm doing content creation where I'm blending my experience as a hacker with doing filmmaking for cybersecurity vendors and white papers. So I'm pretty much a creator now, YouTuber, creator.
That's pretty awesome. So I was looking at your story and your hack on the BBS and the government when you were 17. Mm-hmm. We kind of have similar backgrounds. So yeah, I got started in BBS, and I think my first hack was a nuclear subcommittee BBS. And I found the IP through 2600 magazine, actually. All right. So it's kind of cool. But, with that type of background, do you find that, it's kind of stressful, right? Because when I first got into cybersecurity and got, my background kind of followed me in, the whole trust factor always seemed to be kind of in the shadows, kind of lurking. Did you find the same thing in your background?
With what, sorry?
With your background and what had happened and the arrest, did you see that following you into cybersecurity and people kind of hesitant sometimes? And
oh yeah, like that. Initially, I think the court of public opinion has really changed over the last 2 decades, right? Initially, it was, oh my God, you can't hire a former hacker. She was arrested. She has a criminal record, But now I think the overall opinion has changed a lot, maybe through public discourse on it and other things. But I think the answer to your question is yes, initially, but that has definitely changed over the last couple of decades. Where no, we want to hire a former hacker, or we want to hire somebody that used to break into networks, but is turned into a white hat. It's almost like it brings street cred. I don't know. I don't know what, but That's the only thing I could think of is, who would you rather, secure the locks on your doors and windows for your house, a former burglar or somebody that learned it in a book, right? But that's I want to be careful there, because I'm not saying that people that haven't been arrested and haven't had wearing a black hat before aren't good hackers. I'm just saying that that was my story. That was my coming up story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was watching a video on YouTube, one of your videos that you produced, and it had to do with law enforcement and hacking their car.
Yeah.
So that was really fucking cool. Why don't you tell us a story behind that?
Yeah. So after I published my book, so I was living in Stuttgart, Germany, and working for some tier one OEMs and car makers that had contracted me to come out there and hack their fleet of connected cars, and learned a lot. And after some time, I moved back to the United States, and I started working on this book, and my publisher was Wiley. And once the book came out, I was contacted by a senior official in law enforcement who reached out and said, "Look, we need your help. The automaker isn't wanting to cooperate with us, and we need you to hack our cars, because we know that a lot of technology is going into the cockpit of our vehicles, and we know that that's got to be creating an attack surface that could affect the life and safety of our officers." There was some other information going on that I was privy to at the time, and they wanted to understand how this was happening. So they brought me in. It was actually 2 years of my life, totally philanthropic work. I didn't charge them at all. I just basically was wanting to help the mission of law enforcement. And so yeah, so I ended up basically finding vulnerabilities in the APIs that the automobiles are actually connecting to. And this was both federal and state law enforcement. And also, of course, if you think about it, any vehicle on the road that has an active telematics subscription with this car maker. And so obviously word of my research was getting around very fast within the law enforcement community. And I ended up actually presenting to the NSA, CIA, DOT, all of the different three-letter agencies and components on the vehicle vulnerabilities, and just went into detail into all my findings. What I was able to do was remotely lock and unlock the car doors, which of course is bad on a law enforcement vehicle, and stop and start the engine. So, let's say you wanted to, and all you need to know is the VIN, right? And we all know that getting the VIN number of a vehicle is not hard. I mean, you can just snap a picture of it through the windshield, or just increment them. If you've got one VIN, the automakers actually just increment them by one number. So you just keep incrementing it. But yeah, it was probably the coolest vulnerability research I'd ever done in my career. I had a lot of fun with it, and it was scary to say the least.
Yeah, I watched that video. I thought it was really cool. Did you do any RF hacking when it came to the law enforcement vehicles?
I did. Well, initially, so, I'm the hacker that cares about the remote attacks, not the attacks that you can do from within the vehicle and the CAN bus and OBD2 port. But so for me, it's always been through GSM, right? What can I do through the telematics control unit? For those of you who aren't into car hacking, that's basically the router for your vehicle. It's the modem. It's got the little SIM chip in it. Just like a cell phone, car has a SIM chip in it. And that's what it actually uses to communicate to the backend API service for the car maker. And so my typical attack vector on cars is usually through that GSM interface, or what's called the TCU. So there's within my book, if you guys haven't yet gotten a copy, you can grab a copy from Amazon or your local retailer. But basically, I actually have a chapter on attacking vehicles through the SIM chip, and it's through what's called a Rogue base station, or Rogue BTS. And if you go to Newland, you can actually buy a Blade RF. I think it's the X40 is the latest rev. But it will allow you to actually turn your laptop into a cell tower, and anything around you because you're transmitting a stronger signal than the legitimate cell tower, anything around you that's communicating over GSM will connect to your laptop thinking it's a legitimate cell tower, which includes cars. So if you own the network fabric that everything is connected to, and a regular cell tower has like A53 or LT Snow encryption on, you're and you're in charge of that, you can turn that encryption off. So it allows you to actually see the SMS text messages going back and forth between the vehicle and the back end. So the answer to your question, Mike, is yes, I did try that. I also attempted to attack the vehicle through Bluetooth, but there was so much data that was coming out of the car over GSM that I recorded in Wireshark that I didn't have enough time to go through it, with everything going on and with the API vulnerabilities. So I may release one day when I have time to go through those packets. I may release a subsequent report after this one drops. But right now I've just been focusing on APIs.
Yeah, I think that's like a hacker's dream, is getting too much data that you can't sift through it all in Wireshark.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
every hacker's dream.
I'm a packet monkey. I love playing with packets. So I mean, just even this, like juggling it. Like if you think about it, I run 4 companies. I don't talk much about this, but I'm also the CISO for a bank. Doing all of this together and then going through like a terabyte of packets is it's tough to find
Insanity.
time for.
Yeah. So, I know you are on the board of several companies, and you're a CISO. What I found with being on the board of different companies is it's so much work. I thought these people just actually sat behind a boardroom and people came to them and was like, what do you think about this? And, they gave their opinion, but there's so much more shit that goes into it. So I'm sure that keeps you like super busy.
Yeah, for sure.
Always ask hackers on the show, Chris Roberts and some of the other people I've had on before, what is your favorite hack and why?
So there was a penetration test that I performed of this clothing maker who made clothes out of recycled plastic, which was really interesting. And the warehouse, they actually had completely controlled by robots. So robots were moving these huge spindles of plastic that was being turned into clothing, and just moving the raw material around that made the final goods. And these robots, I was able to actually compromise and hack, and had full control of a warehouse full of robots. And I would say that was probably the coolest, the most epic hack. That did. Probably the next one that was probably just savage was I hacked a bank through the CCTV cameras in the parking lot. So Tamara, the CEO of SentinelOne, came to me and said, "Hey, look, we're about to launch this new IoT security product called SentinelOne Ranger, and we'd really like you to do a paper on this." And I said, "Okay, well, how about instead of talking about your features, I go hack some IoT devices and showed how your product would have prevented it." So I parked my car in the parking lot of a bank, and because the bank had the CCTV cameras on a flat network, as the same network as the bank with all the core banking systems, I was able to pivot around within the bank off of the CCTV cameras that were running on a wireless network. So they weren't hardwired with Ethernet cable, they were all wireless. And I just basically cracked the web key and was able to jump in on the network.
That's pretty sick. I was doing a pen test for a large bank before I started work there, and the way that I got into the bank was through their VoIP phone that was in the lobby. Literally just unplugged the Ethernet cable, plugged it into the laptop, did a little GNU Mac change, and was in the voice network, and then jumping from voice to data. Simple. I find that like most banks, they're supposed to have like the best security, but I know that some of them like really struggle with large networks with the credit cards and stuff like that. So it's really interesting to do tests like that. So you said that you got involved with the intelligence community. I danced in that arena for a little bit. What was it like for you in intelligence?
Well, for me, it was there was a lot more operational work than one might think. So in 2007, I sold my second startup to a public company and decided that I was just going to retire for a while and go do something else. This was around time when arrogance still runs pretty high in cybersecurity. There's a lot of assholes in this industry. Sorry, excuse my French, but
That's okay.
and I was really just kind of tired of the more elite than thou attitude at the time, and I was done. So I actually was approached. So I was on a Fox News Live about some Al Qaeda cyber attack threats at the time, because this was what, like, 6 years after 9/11. And so I was approached by law enforcement, the three-letter agency, U.S. Intelligence Community Agency, and said, "Look, hey, we saw you on this. We would actually like to recruit you." And I ended up actually leaving cybersecurity after I sold my company to go work for the U.S. intelligence community. And I actually decided I wanted to be operational. So I put my keyboard down and traded in for an M4 and an AR-15 SIG 556 SWAT. So I went to close quarter combat training. I've got some great epic photos, but I was actually the only woman in my class to go through SEER training at the time too. So went through that process and won 2 contracts as a defense contractor. So I wasn't active duty, but I won the contract for the Counterinsurgency Advisory and Assistance Teams contract, or the CAT contracts in Afghanistan.
Nice.
And also supported the counter ID contract in Iraq. And so, it was a really interesting part of my life. I was still focused in what was called HUMINT, or human intelligence, HUMINT collection, in asymmetric warfare. But I just more focused on the sort of cyber warfare side. And it was really interesting because a lot of people thought that Al Qaeda and other terror cells were just cave dwellers and didn't know what they were doing. They actually wrote their own software. They had developers. They were using steganography, and even, believe it or not, using child porn to actually communicate, because the sophistication of child porn rings and their rotating IP addresses, and Al Qaeda's internet was actually called Obelisk at the time, and it would actually consistently change. And so this was my focus area for quite a while, and then realized, hey, look, I'm tired of being shot at. Want to go back to just being a computer nerd. So I left and then went to actually lead the cybersecurity assessment teams for San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station, and started getting into critical infrastructure protection and doing SCADA security work for our nuclear power plants in the U.S.
Yeah, that's really cool. What's funny is 9/11 actually, I think, gave a lot of people a boost in cybersecurity. I think cybersecurity itself grew quite rapidly after 9/11.
Yeah.
And you're completely right about Al Qaeda. A lot of people thought that, they were primitive and, they live in the desert, but they're pretty advanced, looking at some of their steganography and some of their stuff.
Yeah, and since it is 9/11, I do want to give my heart out to the families of the 2,977 people that were killed today in 2001. And it was over 6,000 people injured. So I definitely want to recognize them and their families today. It was a loss for everyone, not just Americans, but for everyone.
Absolutely. I was watching some of the 9/11 coverage. It's just really sad that, what happened on 9/11 and what's happening today. It's just, when you look at the work that those soldiers put in and the lives that we've lost overseas, in Afghanistan, and it just kind of fell apart not too long ago. I did SIGINT during the Iraq War. So I was kind of, okay. I was kind of on the other end of the intelligence spectrum.
Right.
And then I cross-rated in from SIGINT into CTN, which was a new cyber warfare rate. So we were probably connected to the same people.
Yeah, I'm sure we were like some sort of degrees of separation somewhere in there. But yeah. A lot of asymmetric warfare. And at the time, what was being called COIN, or counterinsurgency.
COINTEL, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I was stationed at the Joint Force Intelligence Command for a while in
Oh,
Virginia,
wow. Oh,
and
that's amazing.
seeing some
Well,
of the
thank you for your
stuff.
service.
Yeah, absolutely, you too. My roommate back in Alabama actually was a contractor as well, and he did the tethered balloons with the surveillance cameras.
Oh yeah, it's funny. A lot of people don't remember this, but so this was around the time of Blackwater, right? I was very involved in a lot of that high risk and close protection stuff. I went to tactical hostage rescue operations training as well. But this was like the triple canopy days. At the time, Breyer and Thorn, which is one of our companies that we own in our family of companies, is actually before it was an MSSP, which is what it is today. It was a defense contractor. So we were servicing these defense contracts under Breyer and Thorn. And yeah, this was around the time of Eric Prince and Blackwater, who I think has pretty much disappeared today. But
Yeah. I've worked on some of the missions that was left over from Blackwater.
Yeah,
after some catastrophes that occurred.
The whole
with some of the
thing just imploded. That whole thing imploded. I was, I kind it was somebody kind of just felt bad for me. It's a lot of people, and sorry, this is irrelevant to cybersecurity, but at the time, a lot of people didn't understand that why what happened with Blackwater happened. How could you have thrown policemen into a war zone, and into active firefighting, in a war zone? It's like Blackwater was given so many billets, they had no way to service them. They were out of people. And so what did they do? They just went around to all of the local, police stations and like, want to go to Iraq? We'll put you in it. But Mike, they were making we were making over $1,000 a day. So we were pulling people out of the sandbox, in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they were making 30,000, 40,000 a year, pulling them out of the sandbox and then putting them right back in, doing a lot of the same MOS for $1,200-1,500 a day. There were some guys that were billing like $2,000 a day. It was insane. There was so much money going to defense contracting. It was another bubble waiting to pop.
Absolutely. And it was a contractor war. At most of the war was fought by contractors.
It was, it was privatized military. It was basically war had been privatized.
Yeah, paramilitary. And, there was a catastrophe that happened in a bazaar in Baghdad that we had to clean up that was destructful. And I think that's what started to bust their bubble. But that whole time frame really boosted me personally in my career. I lost a lot of friends over there, but in the same token, like my career skyrocketed off of that. But the one thing that it did do on a negative aspect was working intelligence. I don't know if you experienced this, but working intelligence, I got to see things that Fox News and CNN weren't necessarily broadcasting correctly or the whole truth. And so I got kind of a bad taste in my mouth. And that's why when I left the military, I turned to hacktivism. Because of some of that misinformation and
you were anonymous as well, right? Yeah. You're a member of Anonymous.
Yeah. So, that the war can boost people's career. It can, make people, move along in status or whatever. And, but what's really sad was when I left the military active duty and went back as a contractor, they were trying to get me to re-enlist, and they're like, oh, we'll pay you $30,000, sign-on bonus if you re-enlist. But I realized that with my TS-SCI, I could go from active duty to contractor and make four times.
If you had a TS-SCI and they would park it for you and you would make four, like you said, 4 or 5 times what you were earning there.
And that the attrition from the military, I mean, when you look at how much people can make on the contractor side, it's huge. It's really big. The SIGINT part of it kind of led me into cybersecurity. But what I lacked in cybersecurity, as far as, what I felt was lacking in the industry, was I in the military, I knew what to expect. I knew what was expected. I knew what to expect. And I knew how to get from point A to point B. But in cybersecurity, you're completely right. The whole thing with ego's getting in the way of a lot of operations.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the industry is like that sometimes. But I'm finding it now more than then. It just seems like our industry is getting really diluted with
Mm.
all these certs. What's your take on certification?
Yeah, so I know that's a really polarized topic. I'm sure some people are going to want to key my car when they hear me say this, but look, I'm going to preface what I'm about to say with the fact that I used to go through this certification mill when I first started in cybersecurity as well. Went to go get my CISSP. I'm not going to say started because they weren't around at the time. Um, I'd say like 10 years into my career, I started to do that. So I went into get my CSSP. I paid for this. What was it? $7,000 for a SANS GCIA course. Did the GCFA course. There's nothing wrong with getting certifications. If that's what you want to do it. Like go rock it out. Go get your certs. Do that. If that's what you want to do, go do it. Um, I know some brilliant people like Victor Westbrook.
Oh
I've
yeah.
never seen anyone with so many certifications. And absolutely lovely guy and great guy. But he doesn't make it about his certs. And the thing is that I caution people to do is don't be your cert, because that will get you past the recruiter, that will get you past HR. But once you're in the interview, you have to pass it. So yes, you can memorize what you need to do and pass the practicals to be able to go get your cert. And there's some great certs out now that aren't dominated by SANS and monopolized by SANS. No offense to the SANS people out there. But like the OSCP, and there's way more practical than exam stuff. And I have a great deal of respect for anyone who's got certs, but don't be your cert. And for me, I've met a lot of Cisco certified people who had every Cisco cert that they offered, CCNA, CCIE, whatever. And once I got them into the interview, they couldn't tell me the headers of a packet. And I was like, what do you mean? You've got these Cisco certifications. How can you not tell me what the headers of a packet are? Like ninth byte offset of the IP header. What is that? Like, deer in headlights. And so I think, it's good to have them if you want to, but remember that these are for-profit corporations that, like you said, Mike, are like adding a lot of dilution to the industry, and I think in many ways causing more harm than good. But but if that's what you want to do, go do that. Do you? But I'm over it. Like I having to pay every year for the membership fees. I was publishing books and publishing papers and speaking at over 15 conferences a year and not submitting my credits that I need to submit. And so, it would expire and I need to go through like no way. It's like, thank you, but no thanks.
Yeah, I think I was part of the first class of CH Rev 1. And, we got into the industry when there wasn't really an industry. There was no certified ethical hacker.
Yeah.
So I took that test and it was such a joke. And after that, it expires every 4 years or something like that. 5 years, I don't know. But I refused to get it re-upped. There's a lot of certs that are worth the money, like OSCP, like you mentioned. As a matter of fact, me and Pyro and one of our other friends are actually going through the OSCP now. But a lot of them aren't worth their weight. CEH, I tell people to stay away from CEH just because they have problems as a company. EC Council does.
As with Alissa Miller and all that stuff that went down.
Oh yeah.
Shout outs to Alissa, by the way. I absolutely adore her.
Yeah, we just had her on. I guess it was about a month ago.
Dude, she got me like she posted on Twitter, like she has like an obscene amount of followers, like 40,000, 50,000, like it's ridiculous. And she posted on her Twitter feed, go help Alissa Knight. She's only got she's trying to get to 10,000 followers by the end of the year. And it was like, she posted it and in 24 hours, I went from 8,000 followers and I was giving myself till December 31st. And I went from 8,000 followers to 10,000 followers in 24 hours because of her. Jesus. So I owe her, I definitely owe her a cup of coffee. So.
Yeah. On LinkedIn, I have quite a few followers, but Twitter and YouTube, I think YouTube, I just hit 550.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah. I like 2,800 on YouTube. It's hard to get there. Getting people to hit that subscribe button is difficult. So for all of you listening right now, hit that subscribe button for both Mike and I. Yeah, it's hard to get followers on subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. Another thing too that kind of frustrates me about the industry is, and I posted about it this week on LinkedIn. You have people who go around commenting on people's, posts, just wanting to argue shit or talk shit, and it's like,
yeah,
these are people who are putting themselves out there, giving their opinions, their thoughts. Show them some respect. Lift them up or add something to the conversation. Don't destroy it.
Yeah, I want to, but I'm. It's easy. It's definitely easy for me to be a pessimist with the way the world is today. I mean, I would say that, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. Over the last decade or so, things have gotten better, I think, in cybersecurity. Or maybe it was always this way, and I just didn't see it. But I feel like there's a lot more, just what's the word I want to use here? It's not so adversarial between everyone. It does feel like there's a lot more organization, a lot more collaboration, just a collegial kind of atmosphere within cybersecurity now, more so than there was before. But I agree with you. There's definitely some people out there that make themselves feel better about themselves by making other people feel bad. And I think that's really in any circle, not just in cybersecurity, but you got to just kind of just realize that there's people out there that are like that. And, I always have to remind myself, because I used to really struggle over it if somebody didn't like me. It would, like, just for those of you listening, like, it was tough. Like, if someone didn't like me and they were public about it, it really affected me at a visceral level. And it would, like, I'd walk around the house, like, there was this one instance where, I was crying over it. It was horrible. And, and then my book came out, and then there were, some people that wrote some really horrible things on the book review, but I realized, I took a step back and I realized, like, number one, some of the greatest authors in books in history that have ever been published have 1-star negative reviews and, like, grapes of wrath, but, and, there's that. And you need to remind yourself that, oh, thanks, girl. Yay, Kristen. Yay. See, Kristen wrote a lovely, lovely review for me. She jumped out of a plane for my book. That's a long story. But, you just got to remind yourself, Mike, that, just like you don't like everyone, like, there's people you don't like, there's going to be people that don't like you. Yeah. And that's okay. That's okay. I'm okay. Maybe it's just because I'm 42 and I'm much wiser in my years.
I should be a genius then. If you're 42 and you're wiser, I should be a damn genius. No, but one of the things that I have a problem with personally is, when someone posts a comment, my brain works a little bit differently than most people. So when I see a comment, I don't necessarily know how to take it. I don't know if they're trying to be supportive or if they're being negative. And so sometimes my knee-jerk reaction is, why are they being so mean?
Yeah.
Then I read it and someone else says, no, put your Asperger's aside for a second and let me explain to you what they're really saying.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that social part of it is something that, when we got into the industry, it wasn't like that. When we got into the industry, it was very closed lip. It was very very hush hush. And if you wanted to figure something out or learn something, RTFM? Mike, you had to figure it out on your own. Yeah. Like, there wasn't even, at the time when I got into it, there wasn't even a securityfocus.com. And now a lot of the Gen Zers and millennials these days don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about when I say securityfocus.com. They're like, security what? Mm-hmm. A lot of them don't even remember Security Focus because they weren't, God, maybe some of them were even in their mother's womb, who knows, but, or crawling around in diapers, but, the things were different back then. Like you said, when we started out, you had to download exploits and run them and figure out how to compile them and then look at the packets to figure out what it's doing. I remember analyzing packets for Code Red Worm to figure out how that worked, and then writing a white paper on it and publishing it on securityfocus.com. Things were very different back then, but even before Security Focus, and, like, we didn't have SANS, we didn't have master's degrees in cybersecurity. Hell, you could get a PhD in cybersecurity now. That's insane. You could be a doctor in cybersecurity now. It's insane. But, everyone has all of these resources and things available to them, in education, securitYouTube.net, Mike's show, all of these things.
where you can learn. So it aggravates me when people reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter and say, Alissa, can you teach me how to hack? It's
Right.
like, go freaking read them. There weren't even really many books. I don't even know if there were books in cybersecurity when I started.
No, I think with security focus, it's funny you mentioned that, because that was one of the first places I went to when I was getting into, the industry, was security focus. They had posted jobs there. They had, of course, all the Nmap stuff was on security focus, and links to insecure.org. And IRC.
Oh, insecure.org. Yeah, I remember that.
So I think our first Wikipedia was more like IRC. I learned more in IRC than I did in any book.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, kids, I have a lot of people come up to me and saying, well, where do I start? And I'm like, Jesus, man, like, you have all these resources, like, just go. I mean, YouTube, you can learn how to hack in 24 hours on YouTube. What anything like that when we were kids.
Yeah. And there's just, with social media, here's the thing, Mike. With social media, everyone has been given a microphone. Everyone is a PR firm. Everyone can publish news and be a broadcaster. Hell, I've got an entire broadcast studio here, like with cinema cameras that Marvel Studios used to film Avengers. Like this, anyone can make their own movies, write their, film their own documentaries, publish their own news reports. And the problem is that, you don't know what's real or fake anymore, and then yes, okay, the Trump administration's coined this whole term of fake news, but even before Trump, started going on about that, there was always kind of fake news, right? Because with the advent of Twitter and Facebook, you could post whatever you wanted and it would be like Alissa.news, and I could put out there a news report about something that was completely slanted, anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's just getting worse as far as media goes. I hear a lot of people talking about, oh, well, I watch CNN, or, oh, I watch Fox because it's conservative. Well, newsflash, they're all funded by the government. They all have their political stance. It's state-run media. It's no different than, let's say, Russia or China. It's just a different spin.
Well, and a lot of the, mission for Anonymous and the different anonymous cells was, about that very thing, and so, yeah.
Disclosing.
I think that's what attracted me to it,
Yeah, for sure. So looking at your career and the path that you took and where you're at today, what is one thing that you would have changed to make things different, if there is anything that you would have changed in your career?
What would I have done different? I think here's the thing, and this is another thing that I don't really talk much about is, so in 2001, when I was working as a penetration tester for a company, I was bullied really badly at that company. And it wasn't by one person, it was by multiple people. And it was like the whole schoolyard recess bullying, but in a corporate office. And really couldn't get any help from management or HR. And so I think what I would have done differently is not let it affect me the way it did. Because it really affected me, and even affected it affected my life, the decisions that I was making. It was a very difficult time in my life at this time, and it went on for about 4 years. So I would say probably reacted differently in my career to the negative Nancys and the bullies out there. Sorry, I'm like messaging my wife, bring me coffee, I'm out of coffee. So, I probably would have reacted differently to the bullies and the trolls. I think that's probably what I would have done differently, is handled it differently.
Yeah, I think that's a common thought, because even today I find myself reacting at first and then having to pull back and going, what the fuck am I doing? That's the reaction they want
Yeah.
So I learned that.
Yeah, and it takes me so much effort not to go into Amazon and start responding to all the, responding to the negative reviews.
Yeah,
But like J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter has 1-star negative reviews. You can't, as an author, you need to pull yourself back, say that won't work. That just going in there and responding to negative reviews, there's going to be some people that don't like my book. I
yeah,
have to be okay with that. There's going to be some people that don't like me. I have to be okay with that. And it's hard because I am I'm a yes woman. I'm a people pleaser,
yeah.
and so it's difficult when someone is bullying me and doesn't like me and
Yeah.
whatever.
Two of my favorite people in the industry are you and Alyssa Miller,
Hmm.
because you're so
Thanks,
positive.
Mike.
You're so
Oh,
positive all
thank
the
you.
time. And, it's hard to find in this industry. You get
Yeah.
people who are negative, or people who feel like they should be untouchable, and
Yeah, or
unapproachable.
more late than now. Yeah, here's the thing, Mike. I realized, and maybe this was because so there was God, I'm like dropping a lot of new stuff on your show today I haven't talked about before. So I have never talked about this before. But in a few years ago, I actually developed a autoimmune disease which led to cancer.
Mhm. Wow.
And and so I beat that. And for me, I think it was the realization that at any time I could go,
Hmm.
like anytime, like, and that's why, I've got I think the most common message I get on social media is, Alissa, why are you doing so much? Like you'll put out a paper and like the next day another like 30-page white paper will come out that you wrote. And then the next day another video will come out that you produced. And it's like, how do you how why what when do you sleep? How are you doing all this? And it's I kind of just took a step back in my life and I realized, tomorrow's not promised to any of us.
Yep.
And I want to do as much as I can as soon as I can. And I want, it's not really about how much gold I die with in my pocket. It's how many lives can I influence while I'm here. And how many people, how many communities can I uplift? How many families can I bring up out of poverty from hiring them at one of my companies? How many people can I teach? And that's kind of been my mantra. That's been my mission. I want to live well. I want to
Yeah.
live this life well.
I totally get that. In 2017, I had a pacemaker put in, basically to keep me
Oh,
alive. My heart was going, down to like 20 beats per minute. I was passing out, and it was horrible. But after that, I was like, it really puts things into proper perspective as far as what life is and how it comes and goes so quick. And I
yeah,
think I learned a lot of respect for that back in the military as well. Seeing people here today and then gone tomorrow.
yeah,
When you're exposed to a lot of that, I guess it gives you a different look about life. And that's
yeah,
kind of what people have said. Because I try to do as much as I can, and people have to tell me, Mike, slow down. You're going to burn the candle at both ends. Save some time for yourself. Unplug. So I really have I struggle with that a lot, finding time for myself and actually tuning out and doing something away from a
yeah,
computer. And I think
yeah,
it's so important, especially in the industry that we have, because it's so fast paced, things change so quick.
yeah.
It's hard to take that break. But how do you take your break? What do you do to decompress and
Oh
get away?
man. Okay, I'm gonna be honest here and say that I don't disconnect and I don't log off. I don't. It's really bad. And I'm not saying to any of you that this is good. I'm actually quite ashamed of it. Um, but I've got Night Publishing, I've got Night Entertainment, I've got Night Inc. Now we're about to make a major announcement regarding conferences. We've got Briar and Thorn, Night Holdings, we've got Night Capital. So I've also got a venture fund and I do investing and day trading and scalping. And we do all these things it's really difficult to pull away because of either client demands or full-time employee demands as a CISO. And so I guess my cancer, sorry, my answer, cancer answer, my answer for you, Mike, is not a good one. Is that, you know, I don't. When I do, you know, it's time with my wife. Maybe it's little spots here and there. Like on Saturday mornings, my wife and I have this thing where we sit down and drink coffee and watch HGTV. We just finished building our house here,
Awesome.
and we've got all these construction projects going on, you know, um, and so, you know, we're addicted to HGTV. So like a couple hours in the morning on Saturday, we'll have coffee and HG together. That's my, I guess that's my decompression. But for me, Mike, I love everything I do. Everything I do is my passion and my hobby, and it just so happens to be bringing in money. You know, it's like I love filmmaking. I had no idea I would be a filmmaker. I love filmmaking. I love writing. You know, I love being an author. I love you know, writing papers and you know, just and there's so much to learn with audio and video. So much
Oh
to
yeah.
learn. You know, and so I think I'm doing what typical people would do to decompress from work. I'm doing as work, if that makes any sense.
That's the
And
goal.
so, but yeah, and I mean, as far as disconnecting, you know, when I work out at the gym, so I'm very meticulous about my time.
Mhm.
And so you're gonna make fun of me here. So here we go. Check this out. Are you
So,
ready to laugh at me?
so do you wake up at 4:30 a.m. like all of the super uber professionals?
You get out of my head, Mike. That's exactly what I was going to say. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is basically it's my daily task sheet. And basically on the right hand side, I schedule out my day in 30-minute blocks. And so my day starts at 4 a.m. I work out, I go to the gym, and then after that I meditate. And then meditation is huge. Like I can't stress it enough to all of you in the industry that we work in such high stress environment where you're constantly in a fight or flight mode. Your body can't take that 24 hours a day. So meditation is so important, especially transcendental meditation, which is what I do. And then like if any of you are familiar with accounting, there's this concept of zero-based accounting, $0 accounting, where every dollar that comes into your household it gets assigned a job, right? So all of your money that comes in should be assigned to something, savings as well as your other bills. And so I do the same thing with my time. So every 30-minute block is assigned a task. And so I have the major tasks that I fill this out every morning. So I fill out the most critical tasks I need to get done today. And then I actually write down what I'm grateful for. So it forces me to sit down and actually memorialize and write down the things I'm grateful for. I have a 17-year-old son. I'm, you know, for my son, my wife, you know, and just the things in my life that I need to pause and say thanks to. And then, you know, my short tasks, my long tasks, so anything under 30 minutes or anything that takes more than 60 minutes, habit tracking, because you have to be very habitual, right? You know, it's what I've learned in life is that, you know, you are what you habitually do every single day. So you should try and habitualize as many things as you can. And then education. So I have 6 courses that I'm taking right now, and I allocate 30 minutes for each course every day in addition to my task. And so anyone that says, oh, but Alissa, I don't have time for that. Like, there's time. You know, you have the same amount of time, you know, the day that Tim Cook has, you know, or the homeless man on the street. You know, everyone has the same amount of time.
You know what's funny is I think it was Elon Musk who said that the most successful people in the world get up by 4:30 a.m. every day.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a radical reader. I love reading books, and self-help books are my favorite books to read. And that's pretty much in every success tracking book is early to bed, early to rise,
Mhm.
you know, makes a person healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Absolutely. You know, it's amazing that you do that and schedule like every bit of your time. I think that for me, doing that, I think I do it unconsciously because I'm driven by
Mm.
routine. And if my routine
Yeah.
gets fucked up, then I am a mess, like an absolute mess.
Yeah.
Or if something happens that wasn't expected, like, a change in something, I don't deal with change very well. I think it's just part of the neurodiversity as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so someone tried to get me into meditation not too long ago. I'd been meditating, but not the guided stuff, just putting on music and, like, centering. But they introduced me to a guy named Joe Dispenza.
Mm.
A guy, I guess he had a traumatic brain injury and basically healed himself through meditation and,
Mm.
just meditating. So I thought, okay, I'll try this out. I'll give it a shot. Right. So I found this guy, Joe Dispenza, and I put his meditation on. It was the roughest for me because the guy has he has a New York accent. So he's like, talking this
Really
hard.
thick act. Yeah.
it was
My wife is from New York, so I know that accent very well.
not good for meditation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I call him Joe Pez Dispenza. I can't do his voice.
Pez dispenser.
So yeah, that, and, like, I do fly fishing. The last
Okay.
fly fishing trip I took wasn't too long ago, and yeah, I nearly floated downriver. I fell off of a rock and hit my back, busted my leg, and was sliding into the river backwards. It was really interesting.
Oh.
But yeah, so being able to schedule your day is awesome, and I
Yeah.
like how you coin it to where, when you have a dollar coming in the house, that dollar should go to something, should be assigned a task. Uh,
Yeah.
I think everybody is assigned a certain role in life and a certain task. And I have a hard time, like, fitting into that. And I think it's always been my biggest problem is finding that groove, finding where we fit in, especially in cybersecurity. When I first got into the industry as a professional cybersecurity, analyst or pen tester, um, back then there wasn't a lot of tattooed, nose piercings, mohawks stuff, going on. It was
Yeah.
those guys were
Chris
locked.
Roberts, purple beard.
Yeah. So we were actually talking about that the last episode too, is that we were the ones who didn't fit in.
Yeah.
And, when you look at the industry now, it's much different than it was back then. But it's grown quite a bit. And the amount of knowledge that floats around is just amazing. And that's kind of why I did this podcast. And it's kind of why I bring people on like you, like yourself, is that there's no historian, right? There's
Mm.
nobody that's, except Tribe of Hackers, the book, right? So
Mhm.
I'm doing this to kind of chronologically record our lives and what we've done in the industry and what we've done to make the industry what it is. Because 20 years from now, 30 years from now, I hope to not be around cybersecurity in 30 years. Uh,
Mm.
but I want to leave something behind for
Yeah.
people coming in to go, oh, that's what it was like back then.
Yeah. A legacy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, to me, the best thing you can do in any role, any position is to leave something behind that
Mhm.
people that come, even the people that came before you, and then the people that will come after you, can read and that you can impart knowledge onto. And I think that's probably a lot of the reason why I create content as well,
Mhm.
is I want to be able to scale the people in the lives that I influence and improve and make better. Because me spending one-on-one time with someone, which is something that I do. I mean, I do have people that reach out to me, hey, can I just have a 15-minute Zoom call with you? And I love that. That's great, but I can't do that all the time. I'm right now I'm working 72 hours a week, and so finding time to give someone 15, 30 minutes is difficult. But if I create a video, that scales. I can touch 3,000 people with a single video that I can't have one-on-one Zoom calls with. So I agree with you. I think it's, the best thing you can do is leave content behind.
Yeah. I've also struggled with, I've had people say, why don't you monetize your content? Because right now,
Yeah.
nothing in this podcast is monetized. It's, I
Yeah.
do it because it's my passion. So have you gotten to, I'm sure you have you gotten to a point where you've monetized, your videos and, your talks?
Yeah, so I just posted this scathing post on LinkedIn about conferences and venues that don't pay speakers. Um, I'm still waiting to see what the um, what that will trigger an effect in at Night Inc. But it hasn't really had much effect so far. So we'll see what happens. But um, I do charge to speak
Mhm.
at events and conferences. To me, I think anyone in the audience who does speak at conferences, you should try and demand a speaking fee. These conferences are charging so much money to
Mhm.
exhibitors, so much money to sponsors. And I actually actually going into the events business. We're going to be, like I said, we're going to be announcing something here very soon. I'm seeing how much the profit margins are for people that host and run conferences, and the profit margins are huge.
Yeah.
And to know that they are not paying a lot of them are not paying speakers fees is, I think, crime. I
It's
think I
robbery.
think it should be against, like, it should be against the law. I mean, it's wrong. It's highway robbery. This is people's content, and the reason that conferences are attracting attendees is for that content.
Mhm.
How can you not be paying speakers? That's so wrong. It affects me at such a visceral level. But having said that, I do charge for speakings. I do monetize my content. Yes. Um, Now, it depends on the platform, but also with Night Inc. When you see me put out a white paper, I charge my clients for that. When I put out a video for something, I charged my clients for that. So to me, as a creator, that's my time, and things that I'm creating for people. So there's usually someone sponsoring that content,
Mhm.
or actually paid for that content to be created.
Yeah. So I started speaking a couple years ago, and I just started getting paid to speak. I guess it was about a year and a half ago. But what kills me is during the pandemic, when everything went virtual, they thought, well, since we're doing virtual, we don't need to pay speakers because you're doing
Yeah,
it
that's
from
wrong.
home. And I thought
Yeah.
that's such bullshit because you're paying for the content. You're not paying for me to be there physically. You're paying for what comes out of my mouth.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how we as a community need to
Mhm.
come together to fix this, because Mike, this needs to be fixed.
Oh yeah, for
I
sure.
just don't know how we fix it, other than sort of forming a consortium, or
Mhm.
like unionizing, basically,
Yes, yes.
like forming a union where we get everyone in cybersecurity involved,
Mhm.
and become a part of that union. And and that union's rules are that you will not speak at a conference if you're not being paid,
Right.
and paid, a fair amount.
Right.
um so I think, because this has to get fixed, we outnumber them.
Yeah.
And eventually, if every one of us comes together and say, we will not speak at your conference unless you pay us a fair amount of money, they're going to run out of speakers to go to. And then they're going to not attract attendees. And all they're going to do is have show floors full of exhibitor booths and, sponsor banners. I think this needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed now.
I
Right. And
totally
and I just don't know how we go about doing that.
I totally agree. I think that if some of the top speakers would get together and be like, we're going to start a guild, like the Actors Guild, like user example
Yeah,
said,
yeah. The Screenwriters Guild. Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
just be like, look, if you want anybody in this group to speak, you're going to have to pay, and you have to pay
Yeah,
X
and then
amount.
word will get around, and more people will join the guild that do
Yep.
speak. Because not everyone in cybersecurity speaks and likes to
Right.
speak. So I get that. But yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, Mike, if we can take that offline and talk about that, I think it needs to happen.
100%. I'll help you with that.
I'll create the website. I'll create
Cool.
the website, make the t-shirts.
And I'll be the one with the bullhorn making people mad.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm getting to speak in the Virgin Islands in
Oh,
December.
cool.
And that's
Awesome.
one that I wasn't too concerned about getting paid to speak because they're actually flying me to the Virgin Islands and putting me on a super yacht. So it's like,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's for a super yachting conference. So little things like that are, the perks are awesome. But then when I look at one of the conferences in Europe that they wanted me to speak at, and they're charging people like 200 euros to attend the conference. And they said, oh, we're not paying speakers. I was like, wait a minute, you're making a shit ton of money, but you're not going to pay for me to speak for an hour? Like that's an
Yeah.
hour. You want me to keynote, but you don't want to pay me.
Yeah, that's crazy. And and a lot of them, yeah, and I'm glad you brought this up, Mike, because a lot of them, like, look at Black Hat briefings.
Yeah.
How much are tickets to Black Hat?
Yeah.
How much are tickets to RSA?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not paying speakers.
Yep.
How is this a thing? Like, how did this ever become okay?
We've allowed
this is not okay.
We've allowed it to be okay. That's the problem. Is
Yeah.
we've gone so long and not thrown a fit about it.
And it is, Mike, and I think someone actually put this on the Twitter thread that I started about it, where he said, yeah, and they use this thing as, oh, you get to pump up your brand by speaking at our conference. It's so wrong. And then, like, I agree with you. I think, like, even the ones that are paying for your T&E, you can still ask for a speaker's fee. I did that with several cars. So, like, and now I'm represented by AAE. So I actually have an agent that people go through to book me to speak. But, here's the thing, like, if they're going to pay your T&E, like, you go back to them and you say, okay, well, I understand that you need to get approval for this, but I would like to find out if you can give me my speaker fee as well, because you got to understand, these guys are making 100%, 50% profit, 75% profit margins. Like, it's insane. They are making a lot of money, So, I mean, I would definitely push back on that and say, look, my time is worth money. And if you're going to ask me to fly out there, stay in a hotel, speak at your event, people are going to be coming to the event to see me speak. Like, why aren't you paying me? You need to go get approval for that.
I had the same problem in Europe. I was speaking on this European tour. It went all the way through England and part of Scotland, and it stopped at basically every football stadium. And the pay that I got was very minimal. And then they gave me it's kind of like Uber Eats. It's like a little card. I can't remember what they call it over there, but it was like a card to get lunch. And I was like, are you shitting me right now? Like, this is my pay.
So fucked. That's so fucked.
I'm like, oh
yeah, I agree. I think, Mike, we take that as an action item from the coming out of this, because as I was writing the tweet, I was getting more and more angry, and as I was writing the LinkedIn post, I was getting more and more angry. And, like, I think if we get a lot of the big speakers together, form kind of like a screenwriters guild kind of thing, and unionize, and it's like, basically, you will not get any of us to speak at your event. Like, go after everyone. I think between you, me, Chris Roberts, a lot of the other big, sort of marquee speakers out there that do speak at events and is part of their income, and do this as a living. I think we can get everyone together and make this happen.
I'm on board. I think that we need to come up with a cool ass logo too.
Yeah, we'll make a cool logo. I'm thinking like total screenwriters guild, man. I'm telling you. And then all of you supporters in the audience, all of you, those who support us and support this initiative, like, help us with your microphones. Each one of you has a Twitter account. Each one has a LinkedIn account. Go out there and post about this. Like, help us tell the world that this is coming. #expect us.
Oh, there you go.
We're coming.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm pretty passionate about that. When I first started speaking, I couldn't fly. The U.S. State Department had revoked my passport. I had no identification. I was stuck in the UK, right? And so I had to take the train everywhere I went. Sometimes it was 10 hours on the train to go speak at an event for an hour and not get paid for shit. And some of the time I even paid for my own train ticket. So, and in my mind, I was like, well, I'm just starting out. This is, I've only been speaking for 6 months, but you shouldn't have to go through that shit. Nobody should.
Yeah. Dr. Katie Paxton Fear, Gab Smash, Tanya Yanka, everyone who speaks. Yep. We need to get them on board with it.
For sure. So what are some of your other complaints about the industry as far as, what you've seen over the years?
Oh my God. I'm gonna totally hijack this
Do it,
question
do
and
it, do
this
it, do it.
conversation. I'm arachnophobic, and I just recently moved out to the desert, and I'm telling you, like, we have these spiders that are like this big. We have these wolf spiders, and like one of them just crawled up my wall, and like this thing is like the size of my. I swear to God, this thing is like the size of my hand. I'm so freaked out right now.
Is it like really
Sorry.
furry? Is it furry too?
Yeah, like big enough where you can see its eyes and it's
Oh,
winking at you.
nice.
Anyway, okay, I'm gonna try and get through this. I'm gonna try and get through this without freaking out. I think so. What are the things that upset me about the industry? I think there's still a lot of kind of mansplaining and like there's still a lot of this garbage out there. Like I there was a tweet storm that I got involved in where and I try and stay a lot of my followers know this about me. Like I don't get involved in drama. Like I don't retweet drama. I don't post about drama. I don't post about my problems. But there was this one tweet that really upset me, where this guy went on, I think it was either LinkedIn, I think it was LinkedIn, and was talking about how cybersecurity is too fast paced for women, and that women want to ultimately at a visceral level want to be at home, sort of taking care of the family or, you know, taking care of the kids, having kids. Like that's where women ultimately really want to be. And I think the one that really got me the most was um, that cybersecurity was too fast paced for women. I don't even know. I mean, absence of logic. I just don't know how there's any kind of logic at all in that statement at all. But I think that's probably the thing that really disturbs me the most. And then we uh, I don't like to start drama, and I don't like to be the one that is like, oh, Alyssa started, Alyssa Knight started that thread. There was a post I put on LinkedIn when I received this email from CrowdStrike. I'll just name drop them. CrowdStrike sent me this email about their new Falcon, their Falcon conference, and all of the keynote speakers. It was just a page full of old white men, and I don't know, like that. I never really noticed it before. I never really kind of took it. Now I'm noticing it. Now I'm taking notice, and now I'm taking a pause. And I posted about LinkedIn, and then I posted the screenshot. What's missing here is is a certain chromosome, and I'm starting to notice. And then I took the post down because I was like, oh no, yeah. But I'm still very affected by it. I don't know how we go about fixing it unless more and more of us stand up, and more, male allies and stand up and say that this needs to be fixed. We need to make sure that if someone is going to have a conference or an event, that we have a diverse mixture of people, LGBTQ, women, as well as men. I'm not a man hater. I'm not saying there shouldn't be any men at all. I'm saying, like, let's have it diverse. Everyone has a different perspective. Everyone has a different, and vantage point.
Everybody should be represented. I think
Agreed.
that's the bottom line. And I try to do that with my jobs and employing people as well. I try to give everybody a chance. Especially when it comes to cybersecurity, because I think it takes a male brain and a female brain in order to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish in industry, because we think differently, but we think in ways that complement each other. And I think that, even in the military, we experienced the same thing. Back then, when I went into boot camp, they were just starting to transition to where men and women were working side by side. And they were like, oh, wait a minute, this is actually complementary. It's working out. And I think we need to go through the same thing in cybersecurity. But you're right. When you look back when the industry first started, the old Unix admins were the beginning of what we have now. And, the old heavyset white guys with the gray hair that wouldn't say shit to you walking down the hall, ignored you most of the time. And if you asked a question, they were like RTFM, they were all sour.
Assholes, basically.
Yeah. So the industry for me, I think there's a lot to be improved upon. But I think the biggest part for me is the politics, right?
Mm,
And the pay,
bureaucracy. Yeah.
bureaucracy, and the pay as well. When I go into company A with, X amount of years of time in the industry, being here forever, and then walk in, they say, well, you're overqualified, or
Yeah.
we can't afford you, or
Yeah.
they bring in these kids out of school and they're starting them off, at basically minimum wage. It doesn't give people motivation to do shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, and the other thing, it's just look at this comment from User example. Yeah, I'm sure you guys can see my eyes. I'm like eyeing this spider. I'm
I'm
like,
waiting for it to
okay,
jump
so it's
down.
user example. I promise I won't scream. I promise. Yeah, Mike, here's the thing, and I'm glad you brought this up because this is another issue or concern that I've got, which is, you know, the whole degree requirement. Like I was really excited to see the big four, like what was it, Ernst and Young, I think even Deloitte did it, and I think Accenture, a lot of them came out and went public about saying, okay, we've listened. We're not we're not finding good talent. We're not finding talent who know what the hell they're doing, that know what a buffer overflow is or an IP address is. We're eliminating this degree requirement now. And it's like, oh, thank God, finally. Like this is like 10, 20 years too late. But you couldn't go work for any of those big fours without a degree. And a lot of the companies now, in the job postings, you'll see, even not just with the big four, but like a lot of companies where like you need a minimum of a bachelor's degree, or you need a minimum of a 4 year. Like what happens if college wasn't for you?
Yeah,
What
exactly.
happens if you don't want to go to the university and get a PhD in cybersecurity? It should have always been bachelor's degree or equivalent experience. There's why does a degree all of a sudden make you a senior penetration tester? How does a degree make you a senior forensic analyst?
Yeah.
That never made sense to me.
The only way that I would go back and get a PhD is if I got to wear a lab coat and a fucking stethoscope when I did cybersecurity. I think that'd be fucking cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, and don't get me wrong, for those of you that do have degrees, I have a huge amount of respect for you. And when I was arrested, I was expelled from school because they actually arrested me at school. I was doing a lot of the hacking from school. So the school was like, okay, you need to go and not ever come back. And so I was basically a high school dropout. I went to go get my GED, and don't get me wrong, I love education. I actually ended up going to American Military University, and then I went on to go to Temple University and Fox School of Business. And I love school. I love writing theses. I love that I'm just one of those weirdo hackers that loves to write. But and so I'm not saying that's awful, that if you have a degree, that's awesome. As a matter of fact, at some point here, I want to make time to be able to go back to school and get my 4-year degree, and go on to get my master's degree and maybe even my PhD. I want to, like I said, I want to be a life well lived. At my funeral, I want all of you guys to be able to say Alissa lived her life very well.
The only way you can go back to school and get a PhD is if after you graduate with your PhD, if you take a photo in a lab coat and stethoscope doing cybersecurity. That's a must.
That's my next photo, man. I'm going to go steal a lab coat. I'm going to social engineer a lab coat, social engineer my way into like a pharmaceuticals or biotech company and like rock it out, maybe even the CDC or something, and rock out I'm a pen tester with a lab coat.
Awesome. So talking about CDC and COVID and all of the crazy chaos that surrounds it, I've had it a couple times and it doesn't seem to kill me yet. But one thing that we had been talking about before was, why are we not using AI and computer distributed computing to look at the virus and predict mutations and different strains? Like SETI at home back in the day.
Yeah. And this is okay. So this could probably take up a whole other podcast, and is another polarized conversation. But I mean, one of the things that I love about, because I have some people in my family that were against the vaccine and still are, and several of them have died from COVID. So I've lost some family members that have died from COVID, and they refused to get the vaccine. Um, and it was really difficult on me because I love those memes that started to circulate that said, what was it? So you're telling me that the virologists who've spent years going to medical school and studying unknown viruses is not doesn't measure up to your hours of Googling. Like,
Facebook.
I love that meme. But and it's so true. And so this is where one of those things where I don't like to comment because I don't know anything about it. I'm one of those people that, like, unless I know something about it, I'm not going to comment. Mm-hmm. So this is a difficult conversation for me to comment on because I don't know. Like, they could be using ML, supervised and unsupervised learning models. I don't know. Maybe that's how they got a vaccine out so fast. I don't know if they are or not. But if they aren't, for sure, my position is they should be. If the world is changing, it's changing so fast. I mean, think about it, Mike. Look, it wasn't that long ago we were all rocking out pagers.
Yeah,
it wasn't that long ago we were all rocking out flip phones. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was just watching the on YouTube. For all of you, it's a great video if you ever think, if you have some time to go watch it. It's the original Apple event where Steve Jobs unveiled the first iPhone, and it's a great video to watch. But if you look at the date on it, dude, that wasn't that long ago, man.
No,
that wasn't that long ago. So technology is moving so fast now. And, AI and ML is now a thing in cybersecurity. We're in snort. The days of snort IDS signatures, Mike, are gone. Thank God. Yeah. And so so we are in an age of ML where ML doesn't produce an exorbitant amount of false positives, and it's gotten better, and we're starting to get it. We're starting to figure it out. Okay. And that's great. # more, please. And if that's not being applied to life sciences, it should be. And 100%. and I hope it does soon, because 100%. I honestly don't think COVID-19 is going away. Everyone, you heard it from me first. You heard it here on Mike's show. I believe that face masks are never going to go away. I believe the next one is COVID-21, COVID-22. This is our new life now. This is our new life now.
Yeah, I hope the lethality reduces just a little bit.
Yeah.
Being in a hospital with COVID, I was in the hospital twice with COVID, and mostly because of the pacemaker and a genetic blood clotting issue. But going into the hospital and seeing people come in after me and then leaving in a zipped up bag was kind of frustrating. It's kind of scary too. And you're not allowed visitors, right? So you're in this hospital
and you're alone. Yeah, you don't have anyone.
It's chaos. So yeah, I think that if they're not using ML, they definitely need to be. But there's so much, uncertainty about what's going on and where it's going. And then you have the overnight PhDs that are, talking about the virus and spreading disinformation and bullshit. I was totally against a vaccine simply because of the fact that I blood clot really easy. And I heard that it caused pericarditis and stuff like that. But now that new strain is hitting the US, that Mu variant.
The new Mu variant. Yeah. In the second, I got the Moderna, and the first one, I was a little okay. Second one, actually, I was spiking high fevers and had seizures and was taken to the hospital from it. What? So it was a really scary experience. But, I was like, telling my wife, she was crying, driving me to the hospital. I'm like, okay, if I don't make it, this is where this is where that is, I thought I was done, but it's a scary time right now, and that's another thing why I'm so tired of the rhetoric and just
the bullshit,
the meanness, I'm sure you saw that viral video of that webcam footage of someone's house where it actually showed those two neighbors shooting and killing each other.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I don't understand that. Like, there's so much hatred in the world right now, and just meanness. And we're all dealing with a pandemic. We're all dealing with a virus that's killing people. Yep. And I just wish it would stop. I wish we would all just be nice to each other and take care of each other. Exactly. We're all humans. We're all part of the same race.
Yeah.
Just take care of each other.
And people need to understand too, is that, people in big government, they're out to make some money. everybody's out to make some kind of money. They have to, pay their bills and do what they need to do to continue their lifestyle. But people need to look out for each other, because if we don't look out for each other, nobody's going to look out for us, for sure.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny because, even the smallest act of kindness these days now, just almost surprises you and catches you off guard. Mm-hmm. I'm really big on, like, a lot of people will sit there and watch someone, someone who's disabled struggle with opening a door, and I'll rush up really fast in the restaurant. Oh, just quickly open the door for them. And it's like, oh my God, thank you so much. That was so nice of you to do that for, and people are so just like, dude, I opened the door for someone who's disabled. Why is that such a shocking thing? But like, it's sad that we've gotten to a place now where in our society, everyone stops to pause to thank someone for doing something like that. We're pulling over with somebody who's on the side of the road in the rain and asking, hey, do you need a cell phone? Are you okay? Are you okay? It
should be expected. It shouldn't be something that should be that far out of the ordinary,
Yeah. User example makes a good point. Even being polite to someone is like, you think they're hitting on them or something, it's weird.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Alissa, I appreciate you coming on the show. This has been a badass conversation.
Yeah, man. Hey, if you want to come over and kill this spider for me, that would be great. Or anyone in the audience, because I'm seriously about to take a picture of this thing. This thing is the size of my hand. I swear to God, I've never seen a spider so big.
I think you should take a picture of it and post it on Twitter.
I'm going to tweet this shit. This is the biggest spider I've ever seen. I usually vacuum them up, Mike. This thing will not fit in the vacuum tube. This thing is so freaking big. I swear to God, I think it's a tarantula.
You're in Vegas, right?
I'm in Vegas. Yeah, we have these like big wolf spiders. Like I'm and it's above the door, dude. Like, how the hell am I going to even get out of here? Anyway.
So before we go, I'll give you a little tidbit of information that I don't give people very often. Texas Station Hotel and Casino.
Yeah. We pass by that a lot. We live in Summerlin. Yeah. If any of you know where Summerlin is, we're right. Like I could throw a rock and hit a mountain. Like we're right up next to Red Rock.
So I fought there in 2001 against Rocky Juarez.
What?
Yeah.
Are you MMA?
No, boxing.
Boxing? Oh my God. You're a former boxer?
Yep.
Dude.
That was my
hotel.
That's
epic.
That was fun.
You need to talk about that more. That's so dope. Actually, you should have opened the show with that. Like, oh my God, that's serious badassness. That's amazing.
Long time ago.
Yeah, I know that very well. We've actually stopped there, gotten gas, and filled up there, and it's a really cute little casino.
Yeah. Well, Alissa, I appreciate it. We need to do this again sometime soon.
Hell yeah, dude. I'll come back to your show. And thank you, Kristen and Matt and Vicky and Melissa. Is it Micheline? Alex, all of you, user example. Thank you everyone who came today to watch, and I appreciate all of you. And please definitely, if we didn't stress this enough on the show, like hit that subscribe button. I know it's a pain in the ass, but when you're watching a YouTube video, like hit that subscribe button. It helps us. If you're trying to figure out, if you're laying in bed at night, how do I support Mike? How do I support Alissa? How do I support them? Hitting that subscribe button and watching our videos, actually all the way through, and buying our books and commenting and giving a good positive review. Thanks, Kristen. Woohoo! And I love you. Absolutely love you. But yeah, thank you, Mike, for having me on the show. It's a real privilege. You're a dear friend. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it,
Alissa. And we'll get together about the Speakers Guild and
yeah, dude, let's do that. I'm gonna type up a message to you right now on LinkedIn about that.
Cool. All right. Well, have a good weekend. And thank you to all of the ghosts that came to the show today. And this is it for the Haunted Hacker. We'll see you next weekend. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everyone. Take care of each other.